committee meeting. Start out by taking attendance. I'm here. Mr. Podell.
I'm here.
Sue Lehman is absent this evening.
Yep.
I make a motion to excuse her.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. I move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Open issues, Mr. Finance Director.
Don't have any open issues at this point.
Mr. Mayor,
None.
going to new business. Mr. Finance Director, sir.
A couple things first on regarding the agenda. I don't know if you had any questions on the legislation that we're acting on tonight. The biggest and probably the most confusing or least understood piece is accepting the Budget Commission's tax rates and amounts for 2025. So what they've done is based on the assessed values, determine how much real estate tax we are going to be receiving. And if you were to look at the detail of that legislation, there's a sheet that looks somewhat like this. It has the tax rates. And I just really want to point out that we have two levies that were passed. One for the library was a 1.5 mil levy, and then our levy of 6 mils. Because when we pass those types of levies, when we passed it, the taxpayers approved that we would generate $1,020,000 every year. So in essence, that 6 mils, because property values have gone up, is now down to an effective rate of between 4.2 and 5.1, depending on type of property. So while property values go up in the county, understand our revenue from those past levies do not change. That's important for, I think, people to understand. Now, we do see some increase in our real estate revenues on all of those amounts tied to the 10 mil maximum that we're permitted to have. So those were not passed by voters. Those are 10 mils that you're permitted to have as a municipality, and those we do get a little bump in for next year. So what we're doing by approving and accepting these rates is we can build our budget for next year and estimate our real estate tax revenues based on what the commission is telling us, as opposed to what Steve Dandrian thinks we're going to generate in tax revenues.
So we can more accurately budget.
That piece of our revenue stream, for sure. The part of the revenue stream that we can't tie down as tight is the income tax, because that is a variable number depending on how much employment we have and how well our businesses in the community do. The only other thing I'd like to cover is we do have some August information to share with you. The year-to-date bank report at the end of August, we had $21.6 million in the banks. And on the sheet, it tells you what banks are holding those funds, that $21 million. It's split up between Star Ohio, Red Tree Investments, and Premier Financial. And again, this $21 million is all invested and for the most part is earning interest. We get the question sometimes from the public, well, have we put this money aside? Is it setting aside? Do we have that money still available? The way we do that is we take this $21 million and actually put it into accounting purposes, separate funds. And that's what you see on this other sheet. So if you were to look at the last page of our fund report, we have $21 million accounted for. Also understand, though, that the $21 million that we have accounted for, 4.1 million has already been encumbered. We've issued purchase orders for 4.1 million for projects that we have ongoing, for commitments we've already made. So the net balance as of the end of August that is really unencumbered is 17.5 million. Through August, from January through August 31st, the city's generated 18.3 million in revenue. And that last report shows you where that $18.3 million came from. 7.5 million came from real estate taxes.
Right.
7.5 million was real estate plus income tax. The biggest chunk of that was income tax at 5.8 million. The 5.8 million in income tax revenue was trailing last year. It now is flat and actually 0.2% higher than it was a year ago. What concerns me as finance director and what we're looking at as we budget is this is the first year that that income tax revenue hasn't grown at 6 or 7%. So as we budget for next year, we need to keep that in mind that there's some expenses that are going to go up more than 2 or 3%. We just got to figure out how we're going to make our budget work. We may actually end up eating into some of this $17 million that you see unencumbered. That's not the goal, but that in essence could potentially happen. The other thing I want to point out is on page 4 of 6, you see the water fund. It's Fund 501. And you can see that our water revenue is up 1%. For the first 7 months, that was actually trailing prior years, are running flat. And August was the first month of the rate increase that we saw that revenue come in. And so year to date, we're actually up 1%, but total revenue in that fund is only up 0.5%. Remember that the water fund is the fund that's really keeping us in fiscal emergency, because when we project that fund out for the next 5 years, it's close to a break even and realistically should have at the end of the year roughly $3 to $4 million in it. So we're a couple years away from getting there yet. On page 5 of 6, you see the sewer fund, which is Fund 520, and our sewer revenue is actually down still 0.8%, and just on the rates. So it should move with water. We're off a little bit, but year to date it's up 0.8%. So the funds are stable, but they actually should be growing for us to get out of fiscal emergency, and that's why we did the rate increase back in July when we put that through. Questions on our finances through August?
I see that we moved from Star Ohio 2 million over to US Bank Red Tree.
Right, we did that back in, was that February, March when
Right.
Ryan was first here?
I
Yep.
mean, it showed up easily here.
Yes, and you'll also see that $1 million we moved from the general to the money market account while at Premier. And again, because the money market account earns better. That 1.8 million you see in the general account right now actually dipped down to about $1.1 million. We have our paving contract, $372,000 that is being paid. So that number is actually coming down this month. If it stays above 1.5 million, we will go ahead and move some of those dollars into that money market as well. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor,
Nothing to add.
We'll open it up to comments from the public. We accept comments, just as a reminder, that relate to the Finance Committee.
Okay. Deb Tyson, 800 Woodward Avenue, Lot 9. To the Finance Committee, I like the progress that you guys have made since the beginning of the year, with being more open and transparent and explaining, like with the water bill and the sewer bill and why we're having our rate increases. I think that is very helpful. Only thing that I'd like to see explained a little more often, and actually your finance director is the one that did that, was declaring an emergency to exist because it was mentioned at one of the meetings. And I tried to get people to listen to YouTube because it really clarified what it means. But yeah, I think you guys are making some good strides. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to address the committee?
I move we adjourn.
Second. Next Finance Committee meeting will be October 15th, 5:30, council chambers. Meeting adjourned at 5:45.